Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. What an incredible conference, and thank you to the sponsors. I was just listening to some of the incredible philanthropic efforts that you participated in, and I laud you for that. I'm so happy to be here amongst adults. As my friend just said, I had a baby actually about 3.5 months ago, so my vocabulary has not extended much beyond goo goo gaga. So it's nice to see people similar to my own age group. So you are going to be hearing from me in a little while when I deliver the keynote address. So you will probably learn more about me than you've ever had any desire to know. Sure. So last season for my show, This Is Life on CNN, we got pretty unprecedented access to the Mongols Motorcycle Club. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with such clubs, they are hugely controversial and have been accused, they're considered part of a one-percenter culture, and they've been accused of perpetrating violent acts for decades, really. And because of the conflict and the violence in Waco last year, CNN wanted me to try and seek out any clubs that might be interested in talking to us. And not surprisingly, most of them said no, but the Mongols, surprisingly, agreed. And it was really interesting. For me, what I love most about doing what I do is, particularly with this show, This Is Life, and my previous show, Our America, is we explore subcultures or different worlds that you probably have an opinion about. You may have interacted with these people or may not have, but you have a kind of a defined opinion about it based on whatever you've experienced or heard. And what I love doing is immersing myself in those worlds and communities to try and better understand why people do what they do. And in the case of the Mongols, I certainly found a club that is under a tremendous amount of scrutiny by law enforcement, and one that has had certainly a violent past. But I also met, as part of the organization, heads of labor unions and presidents of companies, and I met a doctor and a couple of lawyers. And so it is an organization that, due to some violence or situations that they had gotten themselves in, or certain members had gotten themselves in, had been sort of colored by those incidents. So it was one of those experiences where I, of course, went into it thinking that this was a criminal organization, and left the experience thinking, certainly there are people who participated in criminal activities, but as a whole, I didn't believe, or my experience didn't indicate to me that as a whole it was a criminal organization. But I did ride with about 500 of them from LA to Palm Springs, and let's just say it was the ride of my life. There is nothing like being on an open highway with 500 heavily tattooed men in leather owning the open roads. It was a pretty spectacular experience. Thank you. Two parts to my career. There's the work in the field, and then the work outside of the field when it comes to executives and networks and all sort of business of it. In the field, I really don't believe that I've encountered too much sexism. In the early part of my career, when I would travel to countries where women are considered second-class citizens, or women's rights aren't really acknowledged, certainly there was a difference in how people treated me. There would be many times where I traveled to certain countries, and my fixer or my driver was a man, and people would talk to them instead of talking to me or my female producer. That happened a fair amount, and in those situations, I would just increase the tone of my voice and assert myself even more to show those people that in this crew, the women are in charge, and the women are the people that you need to be talking to and addressing your questions to. In America, I really haven't experienced as much sexism in the field. However, outside of the field, and I have to be careful what I'm saying because this seems to be on record, I can definitely say that there is still quite a bit of sexism in the professional world. And there are times when I think that because I'm a minority female as well, people respect my work and they respect me, but they sometimes will just overlook me. And generally they are males who are in those positions of power who, for some reason, feel like the men get more press opportunities or what have you. So that still persists. It's unfortunate. I think things are changing. I think that women are now raising their voices in ways that they hadn't been able to before. But yes, it certainly still exists. I've certainly been in situations where I worked on a show or was part of a show that performed as well as my male counterparts and didn't get the press, didn't get the marketing dollars, or even opportunities that my male counterparts did. So yes, it still exists, but the more women who are conscious of it, and really men as well, and raising their voices about it, I think that's the only way things will change. Yes, I would have to say the episode that we did in the Richland County Jail, I was fortunate enough to experience something really incredible. In the Richland County Jail, they have instituted a fatherhood program. And for those men who sign up and are accepted into it, they are literally taught how to be fathers. They're given lessons in life. And for so many men who are incarcerated, they are part of a generational cycle of incarceration, and they've never learned how to be fathers themselves because most of them didn't have fathers to begin with. So this incredible program literally held these men's hands as they walked them through fatherhood. And at the end of the program culminated in a father-daughter dance inside of the jail. And those of you who watch my shows, you know that I'm a fairly emotional person, but I lost it during this. You know, for me, as someone who grew up with a very strong father in my life, I think that the father-daughter relationship is one of the most important, most underestimated relationships in society. I've found often, but certainly not, I mean, I don't want to make gross generalizations, but I've often found that when a girl has a really strong father in her life, she, in many cases, may not need the same levels of validation by men as women who didn't grow up with a strong male presence in their lives. And so, to be able to witness this dance and these fathers with their daughters was such a powerful experience. And in many cases, these men, this was the longest amount of time they'd ever spent with their daughters. That 3-hour stretch of time when they went to the dance. And so many of them said, this is the longest I've spent sober with my daughters. And the goal of that program was to incentivize these men to be better fathers when they got out and to have this experience. Most of the men in the program have never owned or ever worn a suit. So for that day, places donated suits for them to wear, and they looked so incredibly handsome, and the daughters wore their best dresses, and it was just a really, really powerful experience. So that continues to live with me, and I've been talking to different legislators throughout the country and trying to invite them to have similar kinds of programs inside jails and prisons. And I'll be talking about this later, but I've covered so many stories inside correctional facilities throughout my life and career. And one of the things I have been noticing is a bit more of a kinder, gentler approach to incarceration because the numbers are just staggering. And in fact, the population of women locked up in prisons across this country is exploding. It's actually moving at a faster rate than men who are incarcerated. So I'll be talking about that later on today, and that was the topic that continues to live. I grew up just outside of Sacramento, California, in a little town called Carmichael. Yeah, okay. So my parents got divorced when I was really young. I was 7 years old, and we didn't have a lot of money, and so the TV was always on in my house. And I thought, if I could somehow get on TV, I might be able to have a better life, because everything that I saw on TV projected a quote-unquote better life than I had. But it wasn't until I started working for a show called Channel 1 News, and being familiar with it, okay, a couple of you. So Channel 1 was a show that was seen in schools across the country. Again, I'll be talking about this a little bit later, so pretend that you're hearing it for the first time. And that show, because it was seen in schools, all of the correspondents were a lot younger. We looked a lot younger because we were trying to appeal to this younger audience. But even though it was seen in schools, they sent all of us correspondents all over the world to cover stories. And as a young kid from Carmichael who never had the opportunity to travel, it was completely life-changing for me because I saw things that in my wildest dreams I never imagined being able to experience. And some of the things were just utterly shocking and devastating, but some were so moving and enriching. And so it was through that experience at Channel 1 and seeing the things in the world that I'd seen that propelled me to want to continue telling stories and pursue journalism. It really, to me, travel was the best kind of education I could have ever conceived of. And being able to do so at a young age was life-changing. It turned my world upside down. And for those of you who have kids, I would strongly encourage them to travel. You know, one of my biggest regrets, even though I traveled as much as I did, is not immersing myself in another country for more than a year, really learning the language. Because the lessons that you learn when you're outside of your comfort zone are just invaluable. And for me, I truly believe that not only did I become a smarter person and a more well-versed person, I became a better person as a result of being able to immerse myself amongst different kinds of people. And as this job market has been challenging for young people, I always say to them, if you are able to travel and expand your horizons, your ability to expand the conversation will go far beyond what those who never got a chance to travel, beyond their abilities. And I believe that those qualities make you much more marketable as an employee, just having that breadth of experience from outside of your comfort zone. So my sister Laura was held captive in North Korea in 2009. It's such a strange thing to just say. And President Bill Clinton went over to negotiate the release of her colleague and her. She's doing great. She's really doing great. She has 2 kids, one of whom is the most energetic child that you could ever imagine, and so she doesn't have time to think about anything else because she has to maintain laser focus on her son. But she's doing really well. She works for a Discovery Channel property called Secret Network, and she's also doing really, really incredible work for them. But that experience for all of us was so eye-opening because for so many years, my sister and I would travel overseas, and we certainly visited, both of us visited our share of conflict zones, and we would hire fixers, people who had worked with other media outlets who were kind of experts in the field to show us what we wanted to see. And in her case, they hired someone who we later learned had nefarious intentions with them. And so that whole experience for all of us as journalists, but also as family members, was hugely eye-opening. I mean, we both of us take different kinds of security and safety precautions before we go into the field. And as humans, we just spend a lot more time just loving on each other and appreciating that we have each other and that we have what we have. It's an interesting question, actually, that you ask, because I've been so lucky to be able to work on these kinds of stories. You know, this season, our new season of This Life starts on Sunday. And one of the episodes that we cover is an episode about the legal brothels in Nevada. And there, it's an entirely different kind of world from the world of illegal prostitution and sex trafficking, because these are women who seem to choose to be there. They work as independent contractors. They have to get a license. This is true. You get a license that says legal prostitute on it. And in order to get that license, you have to pass these extensive background checks, and you have to make it has to be certain that you're up to date on your child support, etc. So what the people at these ranches or these brothels say is that these women are actually more squeaky clean than most regular citizens, because the background check is so rigorous. But we really kind of raised that question: is this world, like, if this is? We know that there is going to be a demand for sex. It just is. It's the oldest profession in the world, and now with social media and technology and the internet, that appetite is more voracious than ever. So if this is going to happen, this market is going to exist, should we then legalize it to eliminate the pimps and the control that women and boys, for that matter, are under in the world of sex trafficking? So I won't give you my answer to that, but that episode is kind of an exploration of it. And the issue of the sexualization of women in media, it's a tough one too, because as a feminist, I think women should be able to choose whatever they want to do and how their bodies are perceived and so on. But it does, at a gut level, hurt me when I see that that a lot of women feel that the only way for them to be able to advance or get attention is by using their bodies. That's something that, as a woman, as a mother of daughters, it hurts me. I was standing in Times Square a couple of years ago and just bombarded by larger-than-life images of scantily clad young women. And I so vividly remember thinking to myself, what am I going to say to my daughter when I bring her here? As a child, these are the only images that she's seeing of women, that this is supposed to be what she's supposed to look like. And already it broke my heart the other day. She was wearing a two-piece, my daughter's 3, by the way. She was wearing a two-piece bathing suit. She said, my belly looks fat. And I just thought, oh my God, wow. And part of it, I have to claim some responsibility. I think that as a human being, we all kind of are a victim to being critical about our own bodies, about other people's bodies. And I hope that we as a culture can really start to change the narrative about that. And I really do hope that those women who are in positions of power in the media can start thinking about the people who are consuming all this media and recognize that it's only having a negative impact on body images. And for those men who are in those positions of power to think about their daughters and how adversely these kinds of things are affecting the minds of kids. Sometimes I just think to myself, how can you as a parent, and most of these media outlets are run by people who have children, like how, as a parent, can you consciously promote these kinds of images? But I think at the end of the day, it's a responsibility that all of us have to take on, and it starts with how we talk about body image in our own homes. Thank you all so much.